Hey guys, it's me, Crystal, and I'm sorry, I like a mess, a hot mess. Um, I just wanted to make a video on how I found out I was pregnant and how I told basically my family and friends and loved ones and everything, and how I told my baby's father, Louis, that I was pregnant. It first started um a couple of weeks before um Louis, which is my baby's father, mother passed away. And so things were very stressful and a lot of things on our mind and things like that. And I was going to school. I was 17, just turned 17 in February, and his mother died in April. So I was just a couple of 2 months being 17, and I was at school, and I missed my period. Like, I usually got my period at the end of the month, like a week and a half before the end of the month. And me and my mother usually get our period at the same time. We get our cycle at the same time. And um so I was at school, and I'm gonna be honest, I kind of had anger problems like my whole life, and I was speaking with my anger management counselor. And his office, you have to get to his office, you have to go through the nurse office. I don't know why is that, but it just was. And we was talking about, I have no idea how we got into the conversation of me taking um my birth control pills, but we did. And we we was talking. I was telling him how I haven't caught my cycle, and it was bugging me, but I was trying to push it off, like pay no mind to it, thinking maybe my period was just to come. It stopped because maybe all the stress that was going on with, my mother-in-law passing away. And we was talking about different kinds of birth control that I can use because I wasn't taking them anymore. I forget. I was telling him that well, I did. I wasn't lying. That I forget to take my pills. And he was like, well, since you haven't caught your period, we could talk about, no, let me backtrack a little bit. He was telling me how there's different kinds of birth controls that I can take, and if I would like that he could bring in the nurse to talk about that. And she was a female, so she knew a little bit more than he did. So I said I agreed for her to come in, and she came in, and um, she looked at me like before she walked in. He told her that what was going on, and she looked at me and walked in and said, "You haven't got your period?" And I said, "No." She said, "For how long?" And I said, "For about almost a month." For a couple of weeks. And she goes, so how do you want to talk about birth control if you haven't got your period yet and you might be pregnant? Flat out, just like that. And I said, I've been trying to avoid it. She was like, do you want to take a pregnancy test? And I was like, I really don't. She's like, well, you have to. We can't prescribe you on a birth control if you haven't got your cycle, and you possibly could be pregnant, because if you're pregnant, you're taking a birth control for what reason? So I was like, all right, let's take a birth control. Let's take a pregnancy test, excuse me. And I go, I pee in a cup, I pass it to the nurse, and she takes the pregnancy test, and I sit down in like the little waiting area that they have. And another nurse that I'm very close with there in my school was was there, and she passes by and she goes, "Oh, Crystal, how are you?" I was like, "Good, all right." She was like, "I seen your name under a pregnancy test." And she goes, "Did the other nurse tell you what your result was?" And I said, "No, not yet." And she goes, "Okay, I'll be right back." She goes, grab the paper, and comes back, and she goes, um, she whispers and puts the paper close, like, to my face, and goes, "It came out positive." And I said, "Okay." And I sat there, and like my eyes turned like so watery, like if I blinked, tears would just fall. And I went to to my anger management counselor, and he looked at me and he goes, "It came out positive." And I said, "Yeah." And he sat down and he tells me to sit down and he tells me to take a deep breath and he goes, um, "How do you feel?" And I go, like I didn't know what to say, and I'm like, he's like, "How do you want to tell your mom?" He knew that my father wasn't living with us, that my parents were split up, and he was married. And he goes, "How do you want to tell, your parents?" And I go, "I really don't want to talk about that right now. I want to go get something to eat." I was very hungry and just under stress. So he goes, "That's a good idea. Go get lunch." Because at this time, I was already talking to him for like an hour and some change. And he goes, "So when I took the pregnancy test, my lunch period has already started." So he goes, "All right, go eat lunch, take a breather, go splash some water on your face, and come back." And I go, "Okay." So um, I go, I go to lunch, and on my way to lunch in the hallway, sorry, on my way to lunch in the hallway, um, I text, no, I didn't text, I called my sister-in-law, Louis' sister, and I go, "I'm pregnant." And she goes, "What?" And I said, I just busted out crying. And she goes, "You're serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she was so, so happy. She was totally like supportive, and I'm so happy. And because at the time their mother just passed away, and I'm sure she probably was searching for comfort, like, yes, like this is a good thing after the bad thing. And to me, I'm like, I'm pregnant. I'm only 17. What am I gonna do? My mom's gonna freak out. So she goes, I go, "I'm not telling him. You have to tell him." And she's like, "No, you don't have to tell him. I'll tell him. I want to tell him." And I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "After school, she first she told me to relax because I was like literally sobbing, like, "Oh, come and get me. I don't want to be here." And she's like, "Relax. You're stressing yourself out. That's not good. Um, just after school, come to my restaurant." She owned at the time. She owned a restaurant, and so I was like, "All right." She was like, "Don't tell him nothing. Don't give him no hints about what's going on." And I said, "All right." And she goes, "Do you have any like proof or whatever from the pregnancy test?" And I said, "Yeah, the nurse gave me a prescription for prenatal pills and the papers saying that I'm pregnant, so I could give to my doctor." And she goes, "All right, save that so I could use that to show him." I said, "All right." So I walked to lunch, and my best friends like knew automatically my face, like, what's wrong? Something is going on. And one of my best friends go, "Are you pregnant?" And I just looked at her and